Hello and welcome to Get Focused with Bill K and Gina Faye. Hello, Gina.
Hey, Bill.
So tonight we are going to discuss a topic about someone we're going to have on a future episode, but we wanted to kind of discuss this topic ourselves because we have questions and we're going to generate some questions and we kind of want to get some questions from you guys. So let us know what we're going to talk about, Gina.
Okay, well, a woman who works she works sometimes where I work as a therapist, is now on the mainland. And she just went live on Facebook for the first time ever to come out of, as she called it, the psychedelic closet. This is a woman, I want to say she's in her mid-30s. She is a very intelligent and brilliant therapist, really, but she has had her own trauma in the past. And I don't want to tell her story too fully because she'll be coming on to tell her story. Suffice it to say that she has, for about 20 years, simply been incapable of sleeping.
Okay, so that tends to be a major issue with
That is a major issue.
a lot of people, right? That
Yeah.
they have trouble sleeping, their mind's always running, different things like that, right?
Yeah. She was well aware that she had trauma in her own history. She talks about epigenetics and the fact that sometimes our ancestors' trauma gets passed on to us. Her mother was very traumatized. Her grandparents grew up in the Great Depression, so they were very traumatized. And she'll tell the story about her grandfather, and it was all kind of sleep related, which is very interesting.
So that's what started the ball rolling with trying to find something to help her deal with her sleep deprivation.
Exactly.
Okay, so you said a term. I don't want to
epigenetics.
Okay, what is that? We're not all as big brained as Gina.
Yeah, I got to tell you something which is really interesting, and I'm going to stop and tell you what that had an interesting effect on me, because what happened for me when I was a kid growing up in school is I got mocked terribly for being too smart.
Oh, really? See?
Yeah.
It's interesting because now it's
that when you said we're not all as big brained as Gina, that I know how you meant it. I absolutely.
No, I understand.
But it
brought back memories.
It really had quite an effect on me. It was like, and am I wrong? Am I bad? Am I doing something wrong? Oh, I'm sorry, I have a big brain. Oh, there's something, all that shit. So just for what it's worth, it's interesting. But you see, again, we talk about political correctness and we talk about being careful not to offend people.
Right.
But this is how grown-ups deal with that thing. If I wasn't being a grown-up and if my kid was here just being wounded, I'd be pissed at you for having said that. I would make
like, how could you offend my child?
I would just assume that you meant you were being critical of me. And
no, actually what I'm doing is it's interesting because here we go. It was more intended at myself and
I know.
and nowhere near. Because okay, so basically there's a lot of times that we use terminology that I'm not, I don't work within that field. So when you use that term, I don't know the exact meaning or what it is. So that's why I asked.
Yeah, but it was meant as a kind of mild self-put down, self-deprecating. So yeah, it's fascinating. So but we've just illustrated what people who are friends with each other and people who know how to be kind can do. People who know how to be kind can talk about this stuff without being afraid of offending anybody or losing the friendship.
Right, and that's important. And
important
to me, and coming from, I don't have many people that I consider to be close friends, and I consider you to be a very close friend of mine, and having that ability to be open and honest about how things make us feel,
Yep.
I think is very important to that.
Yeah. So anyway, epigenetics, I've just looked it up.
Correct.
The study of changes in organisms caused by modification of gene expression rather than alteration of the genetic code itself. So what that means is because trauma has physiological impact as well as psychological impact,
Correct.
trauma can change the genetic expression of an ancestor, and that can be passed on to their kids.
That's fascinating because I think I told you that we did ancestry.com.
Uh-huh.
And Anna has taken it a couple steps further, where she actually last Friday spent a couple hours with one of her mom's sisters, and they discussed a lot of the family. So she's been doing a lot of research on this and finding out that, great grandfathers and whatnot attempted to harm other family members, all kinds of interesting, fascinating things,
So
and how so many people
yeah,
within the family have similar traits and behavioral patterns, and
that's
they
the
never
point. That's
even met.
epigenetics. That is epigenetics right there.
That is
That's
that's
exactly
why,
right.
and that's exactly why I wanted you to explain, because when you said it, and in the
You
context of you
intuitively
using
got it. Yeah, yeah.
it made me think, wow, that is what
That
how
is,
how
yeah.
small of a world, right? That we're
Well,
going through that, and then we're
it,
discussing that
it
today.
it's
So,
perfect. But this is the energy that you and I have. This is something that's peculiar and specific to our relationship. We somehow do
yeah, gravitate towards these things, right?
do that, and the timing somehow seems to be right as well,
Yeah,
that completely independent of one another, you say something that goes, oh my god, yeah, I was just thinking that, or vice versa.
I
So
know.
yeah, it's pretty cool. So anyway,
So she's
um
dealing with sleep
she,
deprivation, and again, she's gonna tell us her story.
yeah,
Um,
she tried everything. She tried every kind of therapy you can imagine. She tried melatonin, she tried alcohol, she
right, all
tried
the stuff that yeah,
everything you can imagine, and nothing allowed her to sleep. And then I'm not sure, and I'm sure she'll elaborate, or I'm sure you'll ask her how
yeah,
she came to do the MDMA experience. That was her first experience,
yeah,
and
because I'm
I'm not
fascinated with this. I
that
really
is
yeah.
so interesting, so interesting. So I don't know myself how she came to do this experiment.
Well, from everything that and I'm not deeply researched in this, but I have listened to some interviews of people that, swear by
Yeah.
experimentation and finding out, and
But
I will.
in a therapeutic environment.
Correct. Under controlled environment, not just,
Yeah.
the day of, dropping acid, or doing shrooms. I'm sure there's still people that buy it
Oh,
on the street and do
are,
it.
of
Yeah.
course. Yeah.
But there's ways about going and having physician assistance
Absolutely.
while doing these things.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if well, geez, there's so much to talk about this, but
I know, it's fascinating.
anyway, okay, so she has really pretty fascinating statistics to report, especially for people with PTSD, soldiers, returning soldiers, and military, that
Right.
kind of
Yeah, absolutely.
a year after their MDMA treatment, which can be 2 or 3 sessions. A year
Okay.
after their treatment, I think it's 71% report no PTSD symptoms at all.
Wow.
That's ridiculous. So there's a guy, I don't know if you've heard of Michael Pollan.
No.
He writes all about this. I mean, he is the preeminent writer about using psychedelics to heal people, to help them heal. Michael Pollan,
Well,
Pollan.
so Um, I know that this assists us because our mind is amazing, right? And I remember as a child hearing the theory that we only use like 10% of our brains and things like that, right? So I don't know how accurate. I've never really researched that. I'm not a brain doctor or specialist. Um, but it's fascinating that that comment comes up, and I know that there's a lot of people looking into how to access the rest of our brain in a sense, right? Isn't am I using the right terms
Yeah,
or
I think you are. I mean, to figure out really some of the brain's full potential.
right? Because
And
I know that with me training, and we just talked about this a little bit earlier, the flow and getting into that state. I know that I have done a lot of reading and listening to different stories about athletes that do marathoners and whatnot, and where they get to the point where their mind is powering their physical, because and overcoming that, pain or different things because they get into a state of mind that you're just kind of like trucking along in that flow state. So,
she was also talking about she has had an experience with MDMA, and actually there's a MAPS. There's an organization called MAPS, MAPS, that if you're really interested in this, they're poised on the brink of getting FDA approval for MDMA.
oh, cool.
And under very specific conditions, and they are going to be the ones, they're apparently going to be having the license to produce clinical MDMA for use for this purpose.
Okay,
So
so that brings up a question because now we see now we with the legalization of marijuana and CBD and THC, and for different states have different laws and rules on this, right? But a lot of states have gone to medical purposes. Um, do you see any negative side to this, or
what to the FDA approval of MDMA for in very specific, because here's the deal, nobody else is going to be, I mean, it's always going to be manufactured legally, of course, people know how to
right?
make it, and it's always going to be manufactured legally. However, the pure, I mean, they're being very, very careful, this MAPS organization, MAPS, to regulate this so that it be done in very specific clinical environments. I mean, there are a lot of stipulations about how it has to, how the MDMA therapeutic experience has to be carried out.
Okay,
The setting has got to be is very specific. The therapists, there have to be two therapists, because the high of MDMA or the effective MDMA lasts between 6 and 8 hours.
oh wow,
And one of them, at least one of those therapists has got to be licensed in the state where it's happening, and both have got to be thoroughly clinically trained. So there's a lot of checks and balances being put in place. This is not just some rogue company saying, "Woohoo, let's,"
yeah, let's
this
produce and sell.
this is not that at all. And in fact, like I say, I think it's at level 3 of the process, or maybe further along than that, of getting FDA approval.
Oh wow,
And FDA, that's it. And she also was talking about, and she'll do this, she'll be able to explain this better. But she was talking about psilocybin and the effect that psilocybin has on the brain.
okay. So what is still
Psilocybin is from a mushroom. It's a psilocybin mushroom.
okay? And
Yeah.
and just for clarification, MDMA
I
is
don't
that
know
the
what.
same or
Let me look it up. I'm not exactly sure what MDMA. I think I don't know where. I don't know where it comes from.
because I know the purposes of these things.
Yeah.
But as far as like what are because when someone talks about CBD and legalized marijuana, we all know that comes it's a plant derivative. But when we get into psychedelics, I know of mushrooms, but as
It,
far as
the MDMA is, by what I've been able to establish, in a quick Google search, is it's an empathogen and an actogen, but it is a psychoactive drug. From what I understand, it's a manufactured drug.
okay,
A psychoactive drug primarily used as a recreational drug. The desired effects include altered sensations and increased energy, empathy, and pleasure.
okay, so huh,
Methyl dioxymethamphetamine. Methyl dioxymethamphetamine, MDMA.
interesting.
That's the initials. But anyway, Laura, this person that I'm talking
Correct.
about, was talking about how with psilocybin has been found to be able to rebuild the neurons in the brain, and specifically in the amygdala. The amygdala, from what I got from what she said, and I'm no expert on this either, but
Right.
talking about the amygdala is the part of the brain that takes input, that takes stimulus, and decides what to make of that stimulus. So, in other
Interesting.
words, if a bear jumps out of the woods and you're walking through the woods, the amygdala decides that danger, and it releases adrenaline. So when somebody is traumatized, that amygdala is compromised, because if they're traumatized usually over and over again by neglect or abuse or whatever it happens to be, that amygdala it can't any longer make the distinction between real danger or perceived danger.
Right. So it almost eliminates.
It eliminates the discretion. It's always dumping adrenaline, whether there really needs to be an adrenaline dump or not. In
Fascinating.
reality. So what she was saying is the one of the physiological impacts of psilocybin on the amygdala is it helps to rebuild it and helps it to regain that discrimination, the ability to make those distinctions between
Right. So it helps
danger,
it become
more,
serve the purpose that it was originally.
yeah, before it got degraded by all this exposure to trauma.
Hmm. Yeah.
She's
See, there's so many ways to go with this right now.
go.
No, well, I'm just. I mean, it fascinates me because here we go again. We've touched on the fact that my father. I could never sit down and have a conversation about feelings with my father because at that point in time, that wasn't what was done.
Nope.
You've seen. I posted an article on our Facebook page
Yeah, that was a
that
beautiful article.
that discussed that fathers deserve credit as well.
And it's so
And
interesting after we just had that conversation
right, we just
about
talked about
how
that.
critical fathers are in the whole equation.
Right. And here we are discussing different ways. It seems like we went from everyone hiding their feelings or saying, "Oh, get over it," to this hyper awareness and treatment. I mean, it's great. I love it. Um, but it's interesting. It's like technology, right? It's like we went from no one having a cell phone to everyone having a cell phone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And it is pretty interesting how quickly it seems, but then again, people probably been talking about this for 30, 40 years and
yeah,
no one listened,
yeah. That's
you
exactly right.
know?
Yeah, yeah.
So
That's
it
exactly
it
right.
fascinates me what else is out there that someone is talking about or someone is saying and no one's
Right
listening.
now. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we had Rob on our,
Right. And discussing look at the energy within our bodies.
right. See, I'm convinced, and I've got nothing to base this on except my intuition. But
Right.
I think that vibration is the next healing modality of the future, using energy and the vibration of energy. And I have a suspicion that that's how Stonehenge was built, and I think that that's how the pyramids were built.
Fascinating.
That's just an idea that I have.
Right.
So, and
Well, I mean, I don't know. The interesting thing about, because you say the pyramids, and the kids were talking about this.
of course you were.
Just a simple, yeah, right. The simple fact that they exist.
Is miraculous.
Correct. And
do you know the tolerances of the precision of those blocks?
right.
You can't even slip a piece of paper in between the two blocks, in between any of the two blocks.
So with that, how could we? There has to be something, right?
You know, and then there are people who might suggest at this juncture of the conversation that superior intelligence, extraterrestrial
Right.
intelligence, who knows? Who knows? There are people who say that we have had a lot of information about extraterrestrials for many, 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 many years.
Right.
And that we are, but this gets into the government BS
Correct.
we
Yeah.
talked about before, but that we have been studying alien technology and trying to emulate it. And
For
so that
many
we can,
years.
oh yeah, for years and years and years. Do you know, have you, this, well, how we always do this. This is so
Right.
much
Yeah.
fun.
All over the place.
Yeah. But have you ever looked into crop circles?
I obviously have heard of them,
Oh,
but
do
I've
yourself a
never.
favor. If you like having your mind blown, I know that lots of men like have other
Yeah.
parts like, however, if you like having your mind blown, just check out crop circles. Just Google crop circles. I cannot encourage anybody who's listening enough to Google crop circles and see what comes up.
That's crazy. Well,
It's it's
didn't they
magnificent.
make a whole movie about that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But these sites that you'll find when you Google crop circles are always being updated because there are always new crop circles being created overnight. Images of aliens.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of it, except it just confirms my sense that there is some form of communication going on and there is some presence that the public is just not being allowed. Because you read about crop circles, but you read about them in the National Enquirer, and it's to make people who believe in them look stupid.
When we had Zach, when we were talking about
Yeah.
the conspiracy stuff, I brought up a specific documentary on Netflix that talks about exactly how if you ever wanted to hide something in plain, hide it in plain sight, and you mock it, you make fun of it, and if our government brings someone dressed up and looks like what they say an alien looks like, and makes a joke about it, then they could walk in front of us all day long and we just kind of think it's a joke, or so, oh, look at that person in a costume and things like that. So
Yeah.
no, I mean, I say it all the time that it's pretty egotistical to think that we're the only people in the whole universe.
It's freaking ludicrous. It's preposterous that we would think.
Well, there's no other living.
It's ludicrous
in the whole.
There have been. It's been recorded in lots of different civilizations. The same images of
Right.
what look to be flying saucers, what look to be aliens, in cultures far, far flung from one another, but the images are consistently the same.
And see, that's what fascinates me. We'll bring this back to our future guest, the MDMA, and really opening our minds, because I think that I cannot remember the guest that we had on. It was in the early beginnings, but we discussed how the educational system puts restraints on our
Oh,
children.
Zachariah.
Right, and how
Yeah.
if we were to allow people to be open thinkers and use their imaginations and really it's limitless, right?
They
What
would not be manageable. They would not be able to be controlled.
and I almost feel like we're close to not close as in like tomorrow, but I feel we're headed down that path, especially with working to for the use of MDMAs and
Yep.
CBD oils and all these different
Yep.
things that are being allowed to and being accepted within the
Within,
civilization,
yeah.
really.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's always been people that have used it, right?
Oh,
There's always been
yeah.
people that did psychedelics and uh, tested out different things, but to actually have it become
Legalized and used for the benefit of the public
right,
is pretty
then
wonderful.
it's exciting,
Yeah.
and
It's amazing, really.
it starts to make you think like what's next, what's possible,
Oh, for sure. And that's
and
why,
especially if it's helping people. I mean,
yeah,
I'm so excited to hear her story
yeah. You're
and
gonna,
how
yeah, you're gonna
and to find out how it let's get to the root of it. Did it help her does she sleep better? you know I want to know because that and I'm sure there's a million people that want to know that same
there's
question
so many
because
people, so many people afflicted with sleeping issues.
yeah, see, and it's interesting. I don't have an issue falling asleep, but I mean, I don't. I've always said I don't require a lot of sleep, but I get about 5 hours, and then I'm up. And it's not that I'm up thinking about. It's just I'm ready to start my day. Whereas I don't know, maybe another hour or two would be good.
Do you miss it though? Because there are some people whose biology just does fine on 5 hours, and some people whose biology just needs 8 to 9 hours.
Correct. And right, like they say, Einstein barely slept at all, right? So no, I don't find that I don't find I'm not tired. I'm not sleepy. I actually have more energy now than I did years ago at the 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon mark. A lot of that has to do with what I eat, though, because I do notice, especially with the holiday with Easter, I had a lot more sugar than my body's used to, and that dragged on me. Like then I would felt sleepy and lethargic at certain points of the day. And it's fascinating. I'd seen a Robert actually posted it on his Facebook page. The sugar. I don't remember the exact, but I think in 1970s the human, we consumed like 4 pounds of sugar over the course of a year, and now it's something like 160 pounds of sugar over the course of a year, some astronomical number. And it's crazy to think that, right? But what do? We put sugar in everything. Everything that comes off of a supermarket shelf
A can of
has
a can of Coca-Cola has 14 teaspoons full of sugar in it.
well, yeah, but now so when you look at Coke, you expect it, right?
Yeah, but
But
not
when you look at ketchup,
ketchup, beans, meats, cold.
yeah,
Mhm.
you
And
you
most
don't
prepared food.
expect it, and then there it is.
And it's really, really interesting because being on this island,
Mhm.
I'm learning a lot about the culture as, it's slowly but surely because I'm
Right.
fascinated by it, absolutely fascinated. But every single food here has even more than on the mainland. Sugar, sugar, sugar. And you know what the major health epidemic is, at least on the Big Island?
Overweight,
Diabetes.
diabetes, yeah, which are probably one hand in hand, right?
And yeah, diabetes, because it's amazing. The food that people the you go to the supermarkets and the deli counter is less large than the bakery counter.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a problem.
It's like, I mean, it never fails to it catches my attention.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, what? You know,
Yeah.
the bakery counter, it's fascinating. It's fascinating, fascinating, good, interesting stuff.
Yeah,
Interesting stuff.
um so we're going to try and get her on in the course of the next couple episodes.
We'll definitely get her on. She's very keen. I already texted her and I
Okay.
got to come on the podcast. So I'm going to give her a call on Thursday and see
Okay.
what, what we can pin down, but we'll totally do it. I believe she's in Oregon right now, so it'd be easy enough to coordinate times and stuff. It
Yeah,
shouldn't be,
absolutely.
yeah.
So if anyone listening has any questions, or
Yeah.
please go to Get Focused with Bill K and Gina Faye on Facebook. If you just search it on Facebook, post your, hit us up with any questions
Yeah. That'd
that
be
you would
great.
want to ask.
Yeah. Because
Um,
she's extremely knowledgeable. She's been doing a lot of research, and this is not just like a whimsical thing for her. She's taking it very seriously.
and we'll
So,
post reminders that when
yeah.
she's going to come on, when
Yep.
as soon as we nail down a time and a date. And
Mhm.
that's with anything. If you guys ever want to discuss anything, or you want us to discuss something, shoot us a message and let us know, and we'll definitely bring that topic up and talk about it.
Or
And
even if you feel like coming on the podcast with us live,
yeah, yeah,
we'd
we
love.
have someone that's going to be coming on, that's has some questions and concerns, and she wants to discuss it. So, and I'm sure that a lot of people will relate to what she's dealing with,
Yep. And that's our
and
whole
that's what we're looking
that's
for.
the whole
Yeah.
purpose,
Yeah.
to bring people that are relatable to people, the regular people that are going through things, and they may think that they're the only ones that are going through it, but in fact, there are many, many people going through difficult times. So it's a really nice feeling to know that you're not alone.
Absolutely. I know
Yeah,
that
you
means
know,
a lot to me.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
well, thank you so much, Gina,
My
and
pleasure.
we'll
And
see
Bill,
you in a week.
good luck with your first.
Yes, and I will message you as soon as I get done and let you know.
Okay, I'm really excited for you. I can't wait. I think you're going to really surprise yourself. I think you're going to outdo your expectations. That's just my sense. I think you're underestimating yourself, and I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised at what you've managed to do. I really,
Well, I'm like I was telling you earlier, I'm nervous, but it's an excitement
I-
nervous.
same face. Excitement and fear are the same feeling. It's just the way we look at them.
It's fascinating. Well, we'll leave you with that, excitement and fear.
Yep. Okay, Bill.
I'll
Have a good
see
evening.
you
Okay.
too. All right, bye.